Thank you for having me, and thanks for everybody coming out to listen. First, I want to start off by saying that I would like to ask everyone to send their prayers and positive thoughts to Herman Wallace, one of the members of the Angola Three, who has been in solitary confinement for 42 years. He currently is on his deathbed. He finally was released from prison a couple of days ago, and we hope that he will be able to pull through because he is a very, very wonderful spirit, a very intelligent person, someone who really could have helped us to make sense of what we're going through, and we hope that he will pull through. Also, for the thousands of other inmates all over the country that have been in solitary confinement, for some up to 25 to 30 years, and it's really unimaginable that we in this country have people that have been locked up in a cell, a 6x9 cell, for 42 years. And it's time for that to end. We as a nation have heaped a lot of suffering on the world, and we still do, for the last 300 to 400 years. And we've also put a lot of that suffering on our own people, the American people right here in this country. And despite the massive wealth that the billionaires and millionaires have acquired, in essence, it really has been a war between those who have and those who do not have. And I've always known this, but over the last couple of years, with the movement that grew in New York, the Occupy movement, it has become to the light of most Americans that we are the majority, and that we really do have the power to make change. It's just that we do not know that. A great illusion has been played upon us. It's probably the greatest illusion in American history that we are dealing with right now, which is why so many people do not know what's going on, and they cannot see what is going on. The last 10 years, we have seen street revolutions all over the world, from South America to the Arab world. And the people all over the world want change. They want freedom. They want justice. They want peace. But it's a great empire and its satellite, Britain and Israel and others, that will not allow for the process needed to take place for the people to receive the justice that they are demanding. All over the world, they are waiting for us, here in the belly of the beast, to rise up and resist. But as I said earlier, the great illusion, the greatest illusion in the history of mankind, is being played out right here in America. And it is an illusion that has had a dumbing down effect on the American people. The state-controlled media, the Hollywood elite, the colleges and the universities, and many more have been complicit in continuing this grand delusion. The illusion that America is the greatest country on earth. The illusion that we are a democracy when in fact we have overthrown freely democratic elected democracies all over the world. The illusion that everything is getting better, that jobs are coming back, but the jobs that are coming back are lower paying jobs than the ones that left. The illusion that our water is clean and our air is pure, when in truth that this is the most polluted environment in the world, right here in our country. The illusion that we have the best medical care system in the world, but it is only for those who can afford it. That even countries, poor countries like Ghana and Mexico, and most of the countries in the world have free universal health care. And we are the richest country in the world, and we cannot even make sure that our people who are sick in this country have the right type of medical care that they deserve. The American people are massively complacent. They are a movie culture, and they have no idea what is happening to them. Yet, more people are waking up. More young people are getting tuned in to the truth. And we have to help them to understand that we have the power, that the people have the power. We need more Richard Snowdens. We need more Julian Assanges, more Michelle Bradley Mannings. We need We need John Brown more than ever. John Brown was the one that lit the fuse for the Civil War. He is the one that lit the fuse for black people eventually becoming free. And in many ways, Snowden has lit the fuse too. He has exposed this country for what it really is. A country of liars and a country of thieves and a country of deceivers that has deceived the American people for the last 40 years. During the Black Panther Party era, we wanted to change this country. We wanted to make this country a better place. And we wanted to do it by any means necessary, whether it was the ballot or the bullet. And we learned very early that it wasn't going to be the bullet, that it had to be in other means. We knew that the American people were not ready for the change that we wanted to bring about. And so what we did was we started what was called survival programs. We use these survival programs not just to educate people, but also to help people to be able to survive. And that's when we went and started breakfast programs for school children that fed thousands of kids all across this country. We opened up free medical clinics. We opened up free 11 medical clinics across this country. We opened up 2 ambulance programs in Harlem and 1 in North Carolina. We started what was called a liberation school because there were no aftercare programs at that time for working class families. So we started what was liberation school, and we were open during the summer where working families could bring their kids to the liberation school. We provided breakfast and lunch, and we educated them and took them on field trips. The Black Panther Party started over 35 to 40 different programs. We raised the consciousness about sickle cell anemia when black people knew nothing about sickle cell anemia. We went out and tested thousands of young black people all across the country for sickle cell anemia. So here we were, a small organization, yet we were able to create these programs and work towards creating the level of consciousness that we knew that we needed. And that's something we were always cognizant of, that we had to raise the level of consciousness of the people. And through our programs, we were able to do that by providing these services and getting people involved and volunteering to work in the services. We were able to create community and really empower people. The other major thing that the Black Panther Party did was we had a newspaper. We had a newspaper that came out continuously during the whole 15 years of the Black Panther Party. Because we used to say that power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in a desired manner. And if you don't have the ability to define phenomena for the people, then you are losing the battle. And that's what has been taking place over the last 30 years, is that somebody else is defining the phenomena and it's taking the power away from us. So that's one of the things I think that we have to really understand is we don't have control of the media. We don't have control of any of the media. There's democracy now, there's There's Al Jazeera and there's RT. There's some other websites which are good, but we need to have a better grasp of controlling the message so that we can define what the message is, and so that we can help create the power that we need to make the changes that we need. One of the other things that we learned to do in the Black Panther Party was broad coalition building. And that was one of the things that we were really very good at, was building broad coalitions with a lot of different people. Poor whites, Latinos, Native Americans, in all communities. We had an organization called the Young Patriot Party, which was made up of poor whites that had migrated to the Appalachians, from the Appalachians to Chicago. And along with the Young Lords and the Black Panther Party, they created the first Rainbow Coalition, which became a threat to the Mayor Daley machine. And if anybody knows anything about Chicago and the Mayor Daley machine, you will know that that was a very powerful force. But when this coalition came about and began to challenge the Mayor Daley machine, then that's when they killed Fred Hampton. And Fred Hampton was one of the most important figures in the Black Panther Party from that era. So we have to understand that we have to really start organizing. We have to look long term. We can't think short term. There's some things that we can do in the short term, but we got to think long term. We got to think 4 years, 8 years, 12 years down the line. We have the ability where we can take over municipalities. We can get the type of people that we want to get elected in certain, in small local communities and cities. Right now, the Green Party elected a woman, a working class woman, to be mayor of Richmond, California, which is a small working class city outside of Oakland. And they have begun to challenge the Chevron corporations and challenge the banks and get them to stop foreclosing on people. And it's an example of what we can do. We have the ability to, get people that we want to get elected to the school board so that we can change what is happening with our public school system. And, our young people really are the future. I'm not just saying that as rhetoric. And that is something that we always understood, that the Black Panther Party always understood, that it's the young people are the future. And if we aren't able to give them correct information, if we aren't able to educate them and teach them, then we have lost the battle. About 6 months ago, someone asked me to come speak at Madison Middle School to a group of middle school students. And I wasn't quite sure what type of response that I would get, but I went, and I was there for 3 hours. I spoke to 3 different classes of these middle school students, and they seriously listened to what I said. And each one of them wrote me a letter afterwards. I read all 100 letters from them, and I was blown away from what they said. It really gave me power. It really gave me strength to know that these young people are listening, and they want to know the truth. And I've been on a book tour all across the country, and I've found the same thing, that a lot of young people are inquisitive about what is going on, and they want change, but they don't know how to do it. And that's where the elders step in. That's where us elders step in. We have to understand we got to be patient with these young people, because they may not think the way that we do. They may not do things the way that we do, but we got to be patient with them, because they are the future. And we have to help them whenever possible. We got to share what we have whenever possible, because they are the ones that has the energy that is going to really push to make this change, the change that we need. Because we are up against a monster. We have the tar sands pits in Canada. Who would have believed that Canada would have gone so far to the right, that they are completely destroying that environment up there in Canada? They are killing thousands of native people. They want to run that pipeline through the U.S. all the way down to the Mexican border. None of that fuel is going to be used for us. It's going to be used for other places. But yet they want to build this pipeline, and we have pipelines rupturing all the time. These pipelines are rupturing all over the country all the time, polluting the waters, polluting the rivers. They're fracking in almost every state in the country, and it's already been proven that fracking causes earthquakes. And now I just read this morning that they're finding a lot of other material that is getting into the groundwater because of fracking. So we got to put our heads together, and we have to think strategically. We have to think long term. We have to think about taking over some of these city councils. We can take over the city council of Seattle. We can do it. We got enough people to do it. We just got to find the right people. We got to be able to be willing to reach across barriers. When I ran for U.S. Senate with the Green Party, I did a lot of organizing on the east side of the mountains, and I really, truthfully, wasn't sure what I was going to find, but I had an intuition that, those conservative people over there would be willing to listen. And that's exactly what I found out. I talked to conservative people, but mainly these people were poor, and these people were struggling, and these people were suffering, and they were willing to listen to anybody that came along, anybody that was going to promise them something better. Even though I was black, even though I was a Black Panther, they were willing to listen to me. The largest percentage of votes that I got was east of the mountains. And when somebody asked me when Obama was getting ready to run for president, they said, man, white folks aren't going to vote for him. I said, yes, they will, because they are desperate. They will vote for him because they want change. And unfortunately, Obama was not the change that we were looking for. So we gotta go across these barriers. Because somebody is a conservative, because somebody is whatever or whatever, we have to be willing to talk to them. Because in the end, we are all human beings. We are all part of the human race. And unless we can come together, unless we can be willing to work together and compromise, then we're not going to be able to really create the type of world that we want to create for our kids, because we have the power. We got the power to change, and we got to understand that. We are the power. All power to the people. That's what we used to say, and that's what Black Panther Party members still say to this very day. All power to the people. So I'm going to end that. And in there, I'm going to say all power to the people. I'm going to say it once, then I want everybody out here to say it. All power to the people. Once again, all power to the people. All right, thank you. All right, who's first? Okay, let me first say it wasn't always like that. When I was growing up, first, let me say that, the type of culture that we have here is like no other culture in the world, because it is a moving culture. Like most cultures, they have things that are sacred. They have things that have been around for thousands of years. They have certain things that they just do not forget, or they don't wash it over. We don't have that in this culture. Nothing in this culture is stagnant. This culture just washes over everything, all for the purpose of money. Now, when I was growing up, I lived in the central area with a lot of Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos, and before I was in Chicago, there was a lot of Polish and Italians. And, we had a cultural value system then. We had a cultural value system that was very similar to a lot of the cultures in the world, a lot of indigenous culture. We had certain tenets like, always respect the elders, that the community was first, that children were sacred, that everybody in the community looked out for the children. That, if you went away to school, you went away to college, you were going to come back to your community and bring those things back to your community. And those things don't exist anymore. One of the things that started to happen in the 70s was they really began to push individualism, because when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, we didn't have that sense of individualism. We had more of a communalism, and that, that's how we were able to stick together. That's how we were able to create the movements that we had back then. Because, nobody talked about going and becoming a millionaire. Nobody really talked about that during that time period. It was all about community. It was all about family. If you got a house, you got a job, you took care of your kids, that was enough that you needed. But in the 70s and 80s, we began to push in another direction. They began to push individualism much more harder than they had before, because they knew that by pushing individualism, you can have more control over the people. And that is what has happened. Then Ronald Reagan got elected in 1980, and the whole conservative policy began to take hold, and things really began to change. And all the things that we knew that were old and sacred, they were all washed away. And this is kind of where we have gotten to where we're at now. Yes. I haven't been around. I've been kind of going back and forth between here and Albuquerque, New Mexico. But there is an email list that goes out from events that are happening in the Rainier Valley. So it's just a matter of getting connected to those newsletters and those email letters that are going out. And it's just a matter of making that connection, making that genuine connection. And that's where, we have to really learn how to, not just go out there for a meeting, but just go out there and hang out. Just go out there and meet people and see what's going on. Because, just as the gentleman was saying here, you got the environmental movement, you got the women's movement, you got the homeless movement, you got this movement, and you got that movement, you got the prisoners movement. You got organizations in the black community that don't even connect and talk to each other. And that's something that we didn't have, during the movement of the 60s and 70s. So, we have to really work hard to break down those individual barriers and really work towards building relationships and, volunteering in the Rainier Valley. And that's how you make connections, by going over there and volunteering and meeting people and building some friendships with people. Then you can get plugged into. But what we have to, the environmentalists are fighting to save the planet, and they're fighting to save the animals, but what about the 2 million people that are in prison? Or what about all the black men that have been taken out of the community and sent to prison? What about saving them as well? So there's a lot of things that we have to change in our minds and the way that we think and the way that we approach things in order for us to really begin to build coalitions. So I guess in essence, is a lot of the work really begins with ourselves. Yes, yeah, because they learned from the peanut farmer, Jimmy Carter, that he slipped through, and they learned from that they will never have a peanut farmer or anyone like a peanut farmer be elected to president again. That they would all have to come from Yale or Harvard. In South America, in Bolivia, they elected a cocoa farmer, Avis Morales. In Brazil, the largest country in that hemisphere, elected a leftist trade union organizer who had never graduated from college. But that would never be able to happen here in this country. So it's going to be left up to us, the people.
He said no.
Right. Let me see who. I think she's next. You know, I was listening to something on the radio, and they were. It was. You know, I stay in Albuquerque, New Mexico a lot, and I was listening to the Native American news, and they were talking about indigenous cultures and how indigenous cultures all over the world, there's the one thing that they share, and that's respect. That is the one thing that this culture and the cultures that really began to colonize the world, that is the one thing that they do not have. They do not have respect for other people or other cultures, nor do they have respect for the environment. They don't have respect for the animals. They don't have respect for anything. And these are the people that are in control of the world, where they have no respect for anything. And you know, but you see these movements all over the world. You know, you see what is happening in Egypt. You know, the struggles that they're going through to find a true democracy. You know, in Syria and all over the Middle East and in South America, in many ways. Because of the Iraq War, they got forgotten by the CIA and the state in this country, and they have been able to move forward and create some real democracies in South America. So, you know, I don't know if any of you have ever been to the World Social Forum or even know about the World Social Forum. But I had an opportunity to go to the first World Social Forum about 10 years ago in Brazil. And that's a coming together of people from all over the world who say another world is possible. And we could learn a lot from struggles and movements that are taking place around the world. And particularly in South America, as well as in the Arab world. You know, we can learn a lot about what they're doing and how they're doing it, and the dedication that they have, and you know, the emotional buy-in that they have that we don't have here. You know, we just do not have it here. And you know, I used to try to travel out of the country every year, because by me traveling out of the country and seeing other people and other cultures, how they're struggling, it empowered me, and it gave me energy to come back and want to fight again. And so I encourage those who are in the struggle in this country, who want to make change in this country. When you get a little stagnant and you get to a point where, you know, you feel that there's just nothing that you can do, you know, go to the World Social Forum, or go down to Bolivia, go down to Brazil and meet some of the activists, go to Venezuela and meet some of the actors. You know, we've had a real dumbing down effect in this country. You know, the young people in this country have been just, they're not getting the truth. They're getting half lies all the time. And so, you know, when I went down to Venezuela, I met some students from Colombia, and I met some students from Venezuela, and they knew everything about the Black Panther Party. They knew more about the Black Panther Party than the average young person in this school. I mean, in this country. So there's a lot we can learn, and there's a lot of energy that we can get from learning from those movements, so that we can come back and do what we have to do here. Yes. Well, I think the main thing is we can't get caught up in the conspiracy theories. We can't get caught up in the conspiracies, because what happens is when we start learning about what they're doing, and we start creating all these conspiracy theories, and we're talking about it and thinking about it all the time, that we lose our power. We lose our power. So, you know, we can't worry about what the FBI is doing, what the NSA is doing. We can't worry about that. You know, we have to focus on what we can do, you know, because, you know, as long as we aren't doing anything that is totally illegal, like, you know, storing weapons and making bombs, there's really not much that they can do to us. We have to concentrate on what we can do. We have to concentrate on the power that we have. We have to use our creativity and our imagination. That is the key to liberation. Creativity and imagination. And that is what has been taken from us. That is what has been taken from our young people, is that creativity and our imagination. That is why the movements of the 60s were able to do what they were able to do. That's why the Black Panther Party, little small organization, was able to go out and feed thousands of kids all across the country, create these medical clinics without any money, without any government funding coming in, and with the FBI coming down and killing us. We were able to do these things because we had creativity and imagination. And that's what we have to focus on. In New Zealand, the Maori people realized this. In the 1970s, they were losing their language, they were losing their culture, and they came together and they said, we can't worry about what they're doing to us. We can't worry about the power that they have. We have to think about the power that we have. And what they did, once they started thinking about that, they began to create what was called nesting facilities, where they began to bring all their young people together and started teaching them their culture and teaching their language. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew until they empowered themselves. So we can't get caught up on NSA. We can't get caught up on that, but we can't even worry about that. Forget about that. Forget about them. We know what we can do. We got the power. We know what we have to do. We know that we're not doing anything extremist. That all we want to do is change the fundamental way that this country operates. We know that all that we want to do is create change where people can have free medical care. We want change where people can afford to eat food. We want change where people can have a good quality education, even if it means creating our own educational systems. And that's the most important thing, is the power that we have and the creativity and imagination that we have. Yes. Yeah, because I see that in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they have a good public school system and they have good charter school system. They have charter schools that are designed specifically for certain kids, So it depends on who the person is that is starting the charter school. If you're a corporation that comes in and takes over a school, then you have your objective of what you're trying to achieve. If you're a community organizer and you come in, then you have the objective that you know that you're trying to achieve, and that you're trying to create an institution that will work best for a lot of kids that may not work for in the public schools. It's about setting an example. And that's one thing that the Black Panther Party did. We pioneered the whole way of social service. We set the example of how social service should be conducted by creating those breakfast programs. And what we did was we forced the government to allocate money in 1974 for breakfast programs and lunch programs all across the country. And we have those to this very day. We did the same thing with the medical clinic. We started these 11 medical clinics all across the country. We forced the government. We set the example of how to create medical care with small community medical clinics. And in 1974, the government allocated money for community medical clinics, which is what we have today. And we also did that with the free legal aid program. There were no free legal aid programs at the time. We got some doctors, some lawyers to volunteer their time once a week at our community centers. And then in 1974, the government allocated money for these legal aid programs. So, we can set the example, and we could use, it would be wrong for us to say, all charter schools are bad, get rid of charter schools, it's going to subvert the public school system. Well, the public school system is they have just totally, really destroyed and messed up the public school system. And until we are able to take control of the public school system, then we have to use what is available to us and make it work for us. you know. Somebody back? Okay, we'll go with you. You know, we got the order to, you know, open up a medical clinic, and we didn't know what to do. But fortunately enough, we met a neurosurgeon at the University of Washington named Dr. John Green. He was already our physician, and we told him what we had to do, and we just started doing it. You know, we got medical supplies donated. You know, we backed up our van at the University of Washington Hospital. We started loading up all kinds of stuff. We got nurses to volunteer their time. Then pretty soon community people start volunteering their time, and it just grew from that. You know, that was the same thing with the breakfast program. When we opened up the breakfast program, you know, we were robbing our mother's refrigerator to get food for the breakfast program. You know, and then we expanded to 5 locations. Pretty soon, the welfare mothers start coming down and asking if they could volunteer. And pretty soon, they took over the breakfast program. We just had to make sure the food there. So you just got to start somewhere. You just got to start, you know, and if there's a need, it's going to grow. It's going to grow from there. Yeah, I think that is one of the things that we really have to do, is to recreate our culture, because you can't survive without a cultural value system, you know. And right now, you know, for anybody who was born in the 40s and the early 50s, and you look at where we're at now, we don't have a cultural value system, and that's what's really hurting us. That is what is really affecting us more than anything else. If we don't have something that grounds us to say that we are a community and we are a family, and this is sacred and this isn't sacred, and this is how we should move forward, and this is the ways we should not move forward, and you know, we have to try to find some way to recreate a cultural value system that says that that the earth is the most important thing for us, that the earth sustains us and provides the food for us, and that the elders. Now, how can you have a culture where the elders are not the most respected element in the community? You can't have it. You can't have a functional society where the elders are not the most respected element, and where children are not the most cherished element, and where you have to give back to the community, and you have to give back to the family, and you have to give back to, you know, where you came from. And that is one thing you still see the indigenous cultures. That is the one thing that they have that will allow them to survive. Even though you find, you know, a lot of things in our regular society, you find a lot of those problems in Indian nations and in indigenous cultures, but you know that they are going to survive, because in the end they have that strong culture that has been around for thousands of years that will help them survive and help them to make it through. And that's what we have to get back to. That's what we have to recreate, is family and connection to family, and what, you know, when you go out into the world, that you're going to bring that back. You know, that's what we have to instill in our kids. And in my generation, we kind of let the ball go with that, because we were the first ones to start exploring how to get away from our culture, you know, which was not a good thing. That was a mistake on our part. And so we owe it to our generations to work towards trying to recreate a real cultural value system. That's a good idea. Now, we used to have, when I was growing up, we had a potluck every 2 weeks at our church. And I just remember, you know, going to those potlucks as a kid, and just remember how that felt. Everybody bringing their food and sharing and talking, and that is a great way. It's a good idea.
Thank you. Thanks.